Today. There was a small plane with 5 passengers on it, and it had an engine malfunction, and it was going down. The pilot came out of the cockpit and he started rumbling down underneath one of the seats, and he put a backpack on, the parachute pack. And he said, "Folks, there's good news, and there's bad news, and there's good news. The bad news is that the plane's going down and there's nothing more I can do. The good news is that there are several parachute packs underneath the front row of seats. The bad news is there are only 4 of them and 5 of you. But good luck, thank you for choosing our airlines, and we hope you have a good evening wherever your final destination may take you." After that, he gave a thumbs up, and out the door he went. So a woman leapt out of her seat and said, "I am one of the most prominent brain surgeons in the Northeast. I have so many patients that depend on me." She rummaged around under the seat, put on a parachute pack, and jumped out the window. Next, a man rummaged under the seat and grabbed a pack and put it on and said, "I'm a partner in a large law practice, and the office would fall to pieces without me." And he jumped out the window. And another man stood up and said, "I am arguably the smartest man in the world. My IQ is so high that I won't even tell you what it is. But surely you must understand that I need a parachute." So he rummaged under and put a pack on and jumped out the window, which left only 2 people, a middle-aged pastor and a teenage boy. "Child," said the pastor, "you take the last parachute. You're young. You have your whole life ahead of you. God bless you and safe landing." The teenager grinned at the pastor and said, "Thanks, Pastor, but there are still 2 parachute packs left. The so-called smartest man in the world just jumped out the plane with my backpack on." I have to give credit to one Alice McKenzie, the George and Nell Ayers Professor of Preaching and Worship at the Perkins School of Theology at Southern Methodist University. And I also have to give credit to her to this quote that follows: "We are all in midair clinging to something. We'd better hope we make the right choice." We are all in midair clinging to something. We better hope we make the right choice. Raise your hand if you've heard this passage before. Come on now. Is this the first time people are hearing this? Wow, okay, great. That's great, okay? Because that's really important, and that's actually the point that those of us who have read this text year after year miss. This passage happens right in the middle of the Gospel of Mark, and in this region called Caesarea Philippi, it's important to note that this was sort of a boundary region between the Jews and the Gentiles. And in fact, there is this ancient shrine to the god Pan. Have you ever heard the goat god Pan, known for his raucous celebrations? There's a shrine to him at the base of this mountain, which is also Mount Hermon, where the transfiguration will take place. This is sort of a holy area for a mix of people, and it's where Jesus asked the question, "What are people saying about me? What are people saying about me?" Up until this point in the Gospel of Mark, Jesus has been doing these miraculous healings. He has been changing people's lives, traveling through the region, teaching, healing, casting out the demons that would oppress people. But there's never been any clarification regarding who he is or what he is about. And so it's right here in the Gospel of Mark that he poses this question: what are these people, even in this boundary land, saying about me? And the disciples respond, "Well, some people say that you're John the Baptist, or some people say that you're Elijah. Elijah was that great prophet who is zealous for the Lord, who went up into the heavens and never landed." So the people had been waiting for Elijah's return, and some people thought that Jesus was Elijah. And other people were saying that, oh, he was another prophet. And finally, he says, but who are you saying that I am? What are you telling people about me? How do you understand this journey we've been on so far? And Peter answers with those powerfully insightful words, you are the Messiah. And then Jesus says, don't tell anyone about this. But you're right, Peter. I am the Messiah. And he starts to explain to them what it means with Jesus as the Messiah. And for those of us who know this story, who have heard this story, we know that Jesus is expected to suffer on behalf of the people, to go to the cross and die at the hands of the religious leaders and the Roman authorities. But that whole concept would have been so mind-blowing to those first disciples who heard this. What? That's not what the Messiah is supposed to do. The Messiah is supposed to unite us, gather in the tribes, and kick out those who have oppressed us. The Messiah is supposed to be victorious, not go to the cross. And then we have this sort of sideline argument where Peter takes Jesus to the side and says, hey, listen, that's not the way this is supposed to go, Jesus. That's not the plan. With you, we are finally supposed to be victorious. And instead of saying, you'll be victorious in a way you can only imagine, Jesus says those words that we've heard over and over, get behind me, Satan. Now, it's helpful to sort of put that into context because Jesus points out that Peter's mind can only understand our human concepts of victory. We are still, 2,000 years later, trying to understand the victory that Jesus gave for us by giving up all his power and giving up all his authority and journeying to the cross. What's interesting is that Greek, that get behind me, Satan, is more of a get in line. Get in line and follow me, and you'll learn. Because the truth is, we all struggle. We all struggle with this powerful mystery of the cross and what it means for our lives. Because like Peter, these worldly desires trickle into our heads. As much as we want to be faithful and follow Jesus, we, like Peter, are compelled by the worldly understandings of success, by the worldly understandings of security, by the worldly understandings of meaning and purpose. We're saturated in that. And so Jesus starts to explain, if you want to be my disciples, if you want to follow me, deny yourself, pick up your own cross and follow. And then there's this commentary that we hear, for those who want to save their life will lose it. And those who lose their life for my sake, for the sake of the gospel, will save it. And it's important to lift up this understanding of life because it's this sort of deep essence of life. It's our souls. The deep truth about who we are beyond our physical reality. The Hebrew or the Greek word is the psyche, which we get our word psychology from. But the Hebrew word is nephesh. And the nephesh is that breath of life that God breathes into the people at the earliest of creation. I remember when I spent a year in India, and I had all kinds of ideas as a young man about how I was going to save the world. When I got to India and I saw the suffering there, and I saw my own limitations, and I saw that in this new culture that I could barely speak the language, I seemed to be but a child. And I remember this deep stirring inside me, this deep inner conflict that bubbled up in me of all of these assumptions, all of these things that I had to cling to, that I was being invited to let go of. That God's truth for me and this world was so much deeper. And I remember it was as if there was this little ego inside me that it was clutching in. God was inviting me to let go. And it was such a struggle. And in fact, I was so torn up internally that I remember physically feeling the blood going through my veins, and it felt like tar. The struggle was so strong and so internal to let go of all of my personal ambitions and expectations for my life, which manifested itself in the girlfriend that I had hoped to marry and in the job that I had hoped to return to. And God was asking me to let go of all of that because God had a new and deeper, abundant life for me. That was the God life inside me. We are all in midair, clinging to something. How easy it is to be lulled by the day-to-day grind, to forget how fragile we are, soaring through space and soaring through life. And what is it that we hold on to? We are tempted to hold on to a Christ that will satisfy all of our wants, who will make the fairy tale that we have imagined our life to be turn out exactly the way we want it. And yet the invitation in the text today is to let go. Lose the life that we have imagined and created for ourselves. Lose the life that our society has pounded into our brains through relentless advertising and consumerism. Let it go so that the life that God has for us can grow in us, so that we can be saved. Our passage from Isaiah, did you hear that frame, morning by morning? You remember, it made me think of great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. Every day we have an opportunity to let go